Okay. Now, what does this term duck refer to? Does it refer to Huey rather than Louie? Or does it refer to Dewey instead of Huey? Which one is it? What do you mean, all of them? If you, as an unbeliever, hold that the only thing that exists are particular experiences, then you can't say that a word applies to many things. A word can only apply to one thing at a time. When unbelievers use general concepts like duckness or hoarseness or goodness, for that matter, they are not talking about something that they have experienced. Now, you're going to say, wait a minute, they have experienced, because they've experienced, through observation, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Ah, that's true. But what they have not experienced is duckness. And you know how I know they have not experienced that? Because this is not very pleasant, but you could make dinner out of Huey, Dewey, and Louie, but you can't make dinner out of duckness. You see, duckness is not the same kind of thing as a particular in this world. It's a concept, right? It's not a physical object at all. And so when unbelievers talk about general concepts, they need some worldview that makes human experience intelligible. You need to ask, what view of the world makes meaningful your discussion of concepts or universals like duckness or atomic structure or love, for that matter? How can you have general concepts in a world that you say is made up only of physical particulars? Now, real quickly, so that you see some of the difficulty of this problem that I'm summarizing so quickly, you're going to have people who say, no, we do have an experience of duckness. And here it is. Now, your experience of that word written on the board is a sense-based experience. That's something physical in the world. And duck is just a word that we use for things that we see having common features. Duck is just then the language itself, rather than an immaterial concept. And I want to show you how easy it is to refute this point of view. Let's assume that this written up here on the board is duckness. All right, you all know the concept of duckness, and it's right there on the board. There goes duckness. It don't exist anymore. If the unbeliever seriously believes that concepts are nothing more than the physical airwaves that we hear audibly or see with our eyes, a physical thing written down, then what you need to do is you need to point out that if we eliminate those physical objects in the world, then there is no more concept of duck. When I teach philosophy, I have a lot of fun with new students by asking them, what is their name? Okay, and let's say we have a student who says his name is Jim, and then I'll ask him, is that your name? Yeah, that's my name. Seriously, that's your name? You don't want to be more precise? No, that's my name. What are you getting at? And I say, well, if that is your name, you're now nameless. And all of a sudden, you see, the light dawns. Wait a minute, that's not my name. That is an instance of my name. That is a representation of my name. That's one example of my name. But I've got a name even when no one is saying Jim, and when it's not written down on a piece of paper anywhere. If we destroyed every piece of paper that had the name Jim, even his birth certificate, he'd still be Jim, wouldn't he? And so there is a concept of Jimness, if you will. There is a name that goes beyond anything in the physical world and anything in experience that can be observed in a sense-based fashion. And so it is with duckness and love and justice and any number of things. Concepts are not material objects. Concepts are abstract in character, abstract and universal. But you see, the problem is, in a materialistic philosophy, where everything that exists must be material, there can't be anything that is abstract and universal, because everything must be particular and physical, which is to say the unbeliever can't even make sense of his talking and his reasoning. Now, you know what unbelievers do? Then they try to come up with more sophisticated theories which are behavioristic in nature. What they want to say is, well, words are understood in terms of stimulus-response mechanisms. And I cannot, in the short time we have this morning, go into much of that. But the critique that I've given you works with behaviorism as it does with any other school of philosophy. Is it the case that a name is nothing more than a sophisticated way of speaking of a response to a certain kind of stimulus? Do we really want to say then that the concept of duck no longer exists when there isn't any conditioned response stimulus out there? Let's talk about something a little more abstract even than duckness and names. Let's talk about the laws of logic. The laws of logic are meant to regulate human reasoning, the way in which we draw conclusions from premises. Now, if you maintain that there's nothing that exists except the material world, the physical world about us, then what are laws of logic? Unbelievers want to appeal to them. You'll hear them tell you you're being illogical, or you need to take a course in logic, or you need to reason more logically. And you have every right to say, what are you referring to? Now, in my worldview, it makes sense to call on people to be logical, because in so doing, they imitate the very nature of God. They think the way God thinks. They are consistent. God doesn't lie. He is true to himself. God is logical. And I need to think in a way that reflects the character of God. So it makes sense for the Christian to call on people to be logical. What sense does it make for the unbeliever to call on people to be logical? What are the laws of logic? I've had people tell me, well, they're just, the way your brain thinks. You say, wait a minute. The laws of logic are the way that the human brain thinks. Well, if the laws of logic are the way the human brain thinks, then we don't need laws of logic to correct the way the human brain thinks, do we? Obviously, the laws of logic are not simply a description of the function of the brain, or it wouldn't make any sense to take courses in logic, so you can learn to think more logically. You can only think the way the human brain thinks, after all. No. What I mean is the laws of logic don't simply describe the way the human brain thinks, but the laws of logic are what the human brain thinks about the way the human brain should think. That is to say, the laws of logic are what are going on right now in the electrical synapse and the biological and physical relations inside the gray tissue up here in my cranium. The laws of logic are what I'm thinking about, and by thinking I mean all that electrical stuff going on and chemical stuff going on up in my head. But if those are the laws of logic, then obviously the laws of logic are different for you than they are for me. And why is that? Because the gray matter in your cranium is not the gray matter in my cranium. And if the laws of logic are just what's going on in the gray matter, even thinking about what should go on in the gray matter, then obviously there's nothing common and public and objective about the laws of logic. The unbeliever wants, I know that this is difficult. I told you this is the hardest it's going to get, so stick with me 2 more minutes and the pain will be gone. The laws of logic are crucial to any kind of rational thinking.